Good evening. We are finally live, and it is about time. I am Dale, and as usual, Ryan's with me. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic.
And we have Brandon with us. For those who don't know, Brandon is an awesome guy with a really cool story to tell. How you doing, Brandon?
Doing pretty good. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure, man. You've got like one of the creepiest stories I've ever heard in my life. I'm not even kidding. It's awesome. I mean, I guess that's subjective, but I think it's awesome.
I can't wait to share it.
So tell us more about you. Let's kind of introduce you. Like, what are you into?
Well, I'm into the same things you got, the paranormal and video games. I have similar interests, that's why I'm here.
That's a great reason to be here, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do in my free time is, like paranormal and play a lot of video games.
That's where it's at. That's the best way to spend time.
Work, eat, and sleep, the usual.
Slave to the grind, and then some video games and ghosts. That's what's up. So what else is up tonight is we're on the topic of ghosts. We've done a lot about aliens, and it's about time we take on ghosts. And why do you think ghosts are here? What's their point? What's the purpose, Ryan? What do you think? Short, the TLDR.
The short.
I was getting
ready to dive in there. Is there a short?
There's not. You know what?
There are a lot of reasons.
Yeah. Forget the short. We're gonna go the long route in a minute. First, let's get to a little bit of news. I saw you found something really cool. So, what's up in the news, Ryan?
All right. So I was, digging around for some UFO tidbits, like I usually do.
Yeah.
And I found out that on April 25th in Florida, there was a mass UFO sighting. And what's interesting about this is they're calling it another Phoenix Lights type incident. Or
how cool is that?
Phoenix Lights 2, if you will. So if you're not familiar with that, what the Phoenix Lights was, it happened in 1997. There were several formations of UFOs or strange lights in the sky. But what's significant about that is that there were thousands of eyewitnesses, and they just blew up, 911 and their local police and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the significance of that event. We just had thousands of people reporting that in.
And as like we've said many times, everybody just can't be wrong.
Right. When you've got that many people reporting the same thing, how could that many people, organize, if it was a prank or a stunt or whatever, how would that many people be in on it? So that's, this story kind of draws similarities from that, except rather than, happening out west, this actually happened over Florida. So when the event started, the local officials, 911, local police, they were receiving phone calls about a disc-shaped object that descended from the clouds. It was a cloudy day. It descended from the clouds, hovered for around a minute, and then disappeared into the clouds the same way that it came. So within the first minute, the police received approximately 12 highly detailed separate reportings, all in rapid sequence, all from different counties. Let's see. After that, they started receiving phone calls from different areas, reporting a similar incident. Something was jutting in and out of the clouds, and people were reporting that off of this UFO, it was jutting out different colored light orbs into the sky. They would travel out like comets. Some would disappear, and then some would retract back to the craft itself before it disappeared in the clouds again.
That blows my mind just to think about, man, realistically.
Yeah, I mean, during the Phoenix Lights incident, the military came out later and said that it was flares. We were testing some kind of new device or whatever. So, like I said, this happened at the end of April. As far as I know, there's not been any, military intervention, claims to, it being something else or anything like that. So that's where it stands now. Let's see, they received over 50 reports from several different counties.
That's substantial,
Actually,
though,
yeah,
like 50? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's enough to, even like I said, it's not in the thousands, like with the Phoenix Lights event, but, how do you, organize that many, pranksters to falsify something like that? How do you get that together? Yeah, that's true. Okay.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah, the story's undone. That's how you do it.
That's it. Debunked. Everything is a lie, 4chan. All right, but seriously, like, that's really substantial. I mean, 10 calls to me, I would consider substantial.
Yeah.
But 50, that's great. And multi-county, that's really cool.
Yeah, they were coming from all over the place, so, that kind of lends some sort of credit to the sighting.
It does.
So there are apparently, I don't know of any videos, but there are some photographs that were taken of the event. If you want to find those, you can just Google the April 25th mass UFO sighting.
I've definitely never had like a substantial event or sighting, but, I've definitely seen things in the sky that I couldn't explain.
That's awesome.
Especially growing up around this area. My mom and dad kind of lived out in the sticks, and you could really see a lot more stuff out there in the sky.
Yeah, I believe it. They say the wide open skies in the south, it's easier to see things, and I definitely believe that's true.
Mm.
A lot of the report, and I don't want to say that, it's because of the, we're in the south, but, I think there's a lot of reports that come, again, just visibility in the city. It'd be really hard to see something like that. Imagine standing,
right.
Yeah, on a busy street in the city. It's good luck.
Yeah, lots of,
you're not going to see.
What they call light pollution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can see a major difference, just being out in the country from the amount of stars that you can actually see being out in the country.
Yeah. Well, I want to go the opposite direction this week. We've done a lot of aliens, and that's really interesting, but
yeah, bring me back down from space.
Let's bring Ryan back to Earth. Well, you know what? Maybe not to Earth, maybe to somewhere else on maybe another plane or something. We'll get to that later. But for now, my news article is, I thought, pretty crazy. The Grand Midway Hotel in Pennsylvania is home to what is officially the largest Ouija board on Earth. I said Ouija. Apparently, Ouija is unacceptable now.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
It's on me too.
It's what I heard on a comment in Facebook, and for me, that's reputable. So it's like Wikipedia. That's my news site. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So how big is this thing?
Well, let me start here. Built more than a century ago, the Grand Midway Hotels managed to attract the attention of numerous paranormal investigations, authors, and television producers. The hotel was an old coal mining hotel from the late 1880s, said filmmaker Blair Murphy, who lives in the building. I could recall countless ghost encounter stories from folks who have stayed the night. It's actually been a fascinating place to live. She came up with the idea of building a giant Ouija board on the roof of the hotel after having, his own experience with a regular size board.
If I was,
Things flipped out throughout the hotel, he said. It seemed to kick things up an entire new level of paranormal activity. We've seen things floating around and hearing voices, and even the hotel pets were flipping out to unseen forces. All right, so things are terrible. What do we do? Let's amp it up.
Who do you call? No one. We're just gonna replace the roof with the Ouija board.
We're not going to call anyone. We're going to make things worse. Well, I don't know. Honestly, though, I thought that was really cool. I mean, would it be cool to be there versus talking about it from here?
I don't know. It raises a couple of questions for me because I don't have much experience with Ouija boards myself. That is a disclaimer. I kind of feel like whoever you're doing this with, participating in the act itself, I think it depends on the intentions and how much the people you're doing it with believe in it. If people, if you're just being silly, if you're just drunk, having a good time at a party or whatever, I think it's probably just going to be like a silly game.
Yeah.
So it really, for a device like that to have any kind of real effect, I think it takes some real belief and seriousness on the part of the users.
I think we always end up with that, don't we? It's how much you believe and care about it,
Right.
It's like, how far will your career go? Well, how passionate are you?
Yeah. It's a reflection of your intention and your own spirit and everything.
I definitely agree with that. Well, I mean, that's all I've got for that, because I feel like if I keep talking about it, we're just going to end up where we're going inevitably anyway.
Right.
So.
Which is to ghosties.
Yes, it is ghosties tonight. I like ghosties. Does that sound excited? Because I'm excited about ghosties. I don't know what that sounds like. I've never done that one. Yet here we are. All right, well, let's take a quick little promo break just so we can pad our numbers and I would say, sell some tickets, but that's not what we're doing. All right, we'll be right back, folks. Promo break just so we can pad our numbers. Have you ever seen a ghost? Have you ever heard voices? Maybe you know someone who has. If you're afraid to share your story, there's not always an outlet, and sometimes it's scary. But don't worry about being judged. Come and hang out with us at Spook House Radio, and we'd love to hear your story. Write us an email or come hop in chat. We go live every Friday night at midnight, and we'd love to have you and your story. Yes, we would. We would love to have you and your story. And we have a few folks with us tonight, actually. Thank you all for showing up. Yeah. We don't want to sound like we're those guys and nobody shows up to the party, but, we're kind of those guys. We're new. We're new in town, and, so thanks everybody for coming and hanging out with us. We appreciate it. It's really awesome. And we would love you if you want to, pop in, your comments and chat. We'll talk with you. That'd be great. I got no problem.
Yeah, we're watching the chat room, so.
Ryan's not really that friendly, but I am. I'm a good guy. No, I'm joking. He's a good guy, too. And so is Brandon. So let's get started with our subject. Brandon, I want to know from you, why might spirits stick around? Why might they?
That is you picked a good subject, because that's a hard one.
Well, thank you.
We've heard, like, they have unfinished business, or, if someone dies, in kind of a horrific way, sometimes, that energy can stay behind, but, I'm kind of more partial to the theory, that maybe they're on a different plane, than us.
Yeah, maybe.
I've heard of the theory myself that, and this is kind of dealing with, whether or not you believe there are parallel universes or the multiverse, as some people like to put it.
Yeah, it's the Metroverse now.
Yeah, so the idea of that theory is that there are multiple parallel universes going on alongside of ours, and if there are areas within each universe that are thinner than the others, then you will experience, people or events, happenings, in the parallel universe. So to rephrase that, what you may be experiencing rather than, a ghost or a spirit is an image or an after image of the parallel reality next to ours, just coming through to our own, if that makes sense.
It does. I have to wonder, you hear of residual hauntings where it's a record on repeat, and
right.
Is that what's maybe this is happening in that other universe? And then you hear about whenever people will do like renovations to a house, it's really common that it stirs up activity. Are they seeing you move their stuff? I mean, when they're moving your chair, are they really moving their own chair?
Yeah, that's something to think about too.
I mean,
it's you hear people with stories of furniture being moved around or things being knocked off the table. Mm-hmm. Are you the ghost in their world?
Are we? That's
are they just moving their furniture back? From where you moved it. That's
a good question. Yeah.
Yeah. We just got deep in here. It's a good question. It really is. It's really hard to say, but there have been a lot of course, not scientific studies because we're still, I think, a good ways away from that. But
right.
There's been a lot of trial and error kind of studies, and I think it's plausible. Absolutely. But why? Again, I ask. The why is it's a big question, and I want to start this little part. This question, I want to say, let's push the why aside and say there's an option for the ghost to be here or not. All right, let's assume that. Are they stuck? Do you see a door that takes you to the afterlife, and then if you don't take it right then, you're forever on Earth? Is that hell? Is there a choice?
Yeah, you always hear in near-death experience stories. I'm traveling to a tunnel towards the light. You even hear some people explain that they were greeted by a being in the afterlife and offered a choice, do you want to come through the door, through the light to the afterlife, or do you want to remain? Now, most people, if they choose to remain, that has kind of led them to, going back into their body and recovering from whatever event put them in that place to the first place. But
why would you stick around? Would you want to if you had a choice?
Yeah, I mean, I personally wouldn't, but I could see why, maybe others might make that choice, wanting to look in on loved ones or, see the affairs of their family or, something like that. Like I could see the desire for some, but I myself would not. But
right. If there is a heaven and hell, would sticking around here, again, avoid that? But why? Why would you stick around?
If I was to stick around after my death, it would have to be to check on my loved ones, just to see how they're doing, and, if I could have any other further positive influence, attempt to do so. And I think it's more of a reflection of what kind of person you are.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think of myself as a more positive person. I don't really hold grudges or, seek revenge for people that have done me wrong or anything like that. I'm a more, live and let live kind of guy. I let things go.
And a die and let die kind of guy.
Yeah.
See that?
In that case, yeah.
That works out.
So I don't think in my particular situation, I don't know that if I decided to stay, if that would, kind of lock me into a malicious type of state, if that's what determines what kind of ghost you'll be.
Yeah. Well, if there's no heaven and hell, say, then would there even be a consequence? Are they already stuck on this other plane and just some can kind of reach through? Because I've heard the argument, it was a smart-ass comment by someone that said after Ed Warren passed away, well, if they're so in touch with ghosts, then why doesn't he just come talk to his wife? I would say he would if he had a choice, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, anyone in chat, help us fix this Rubik's Cube, because it's one of those things you don't know. We actually have studied up on it a bit. Believe it or not, we're not going in completely ignorant. It's just so hard to say, and we don't want to sound like, we're directing you in a certain direction, but I probably would, if I thought that, as you said, have influence on the future of like my children. If I know that I could protect them, help guide them when they needed it, comfort when they're lonesome.
So when that choice is offered to you, if there is a choice, big what if here.
Yeah.
Is there a catch to it? Is there only, so much you can do, so much influence you can have on this plane?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the promise of being able to see your loved ones is greater than, that catch to some people, or maybe the catch isn't explained to you at all.
It could be. Yeah.
So,
H. Bryce raises a great point and says, I hear it takes a lot of energy for spirits to reach out to us in our own realm, or in our realm.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many pieces to this puzzle, and, we'll each come up with one, and then we'll still be left with a whole lot of puzzle.
And that's the one.
Yeah, that's a big one there.
We may never be able to answer. Science or anyone. What happens after we die?
I will say, to back the point of them there, is that in places that have, like, I've heard a lot of limestone, there's more energy in the air during thunderstorms, and supposedly, more spirit activities happening. So that raises an amazing point. So those chose to stick around. Why, I don't know, but they did. Yeah. They chose it, clearly. Or they didn't. I don't know. I don't want to insinuate.
So then do we believe that spirits can draw energies from our world, to be able to make any, influential changes to this plane? Like you were saying, a higher, an area with a higher charge, from thunderstorms or what have you. Would you seek out areas like that to gain more power, to make your presence known on this plane?
That's something I've literally never considered at all. Would I gravitate to somewhere?
Yeah.
You know what, though? It would be like a power plant, and you would be like the one spot where nobody could ever be because it's dangerous or something. Hey guys, I'm back to haunt you, but no one knows. Whatever. But I'm here. Cool. That would be my situation. But yeah,
So-
why overall? Forget the singular. Why overall? And would a God obviously be letting it exist? Is it just enough to where we can't make full contact and get answers about death? I mean, I guess that's going away from the question why, but
I guess when I think about that, kind of stepping back to being given a choice, at the end of the light, will you go on to an afterlife or choose to remain?
that's what it seems to come back to.
I think when you make that choice, if you were one to choose, I want to remain on this plane, I think that is maybe kind of a rejection of the afterlife. So you're not going to receive any further assistance from said God or...
Yeah, I think a big answer to why would be that you're just not ready. You weren't ready to pass away. Something tragic happened, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like Injustice, there was a story I heard recently about a guy who was put in prison for murder, and he swore he was innocent, swore. Years and years pass, and, that he got the death penalty. And he said, I am innocent, but I will come back and be the last one left laughing. And all kinds of events took place after that. And I said, well, that's a really good answer to the question why. But would you really be that damn bitter? I want to think I could never be that bitter, but go ahead.
His specific why does make sense,
Mm-hmm. Gaiman George says he thinks spirits or ghosts build a lot off of the energy of emotional feelings. And I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, that's true too.
You hear grieving and stuff in hospital rooms and spirits and things. You do. There's so many angles to look at.
So I think what we can take away is that the why really, is a reflection on the person.
Like on Earth,
there is a
why would you shoot up a mini mart? Because it's the kind of person you are.
Yeah, I think for a malicious spirit to, take shape, it kind of takes a person with that kind of attitude to them to begin with. Someone that would seek out revenge for, wrongdoings, no matter how big or small, or if you are a bitter person that, tends to hold grudges, things like that. So might be something to think about.
It might.
Before it's too late,
Another answer to the question why maybe what if they have no other choice? Have you ever heard the stories where they'll find like a little boy or little girl haunting the house, and then it'll turn out that something is keeping it there? Like I've heard of demons actually keeping like spirits here. I've heard that a few times. I thought I'd hear it once and never again, but I've heard that a few times. That would be a hell of a reason to be stuck here. Not a great one, but a reason. It answers the question.
Someone being kept against their will.
Yeah.
On this plane.
If you've ever seen The Conjuring 2, that film is sort of, I call it film like it's, cinematic from the 50s, but, it's a good movie. And it does raise that question as you go through the film. You get bits and pieces. I don't want to give anything away, but it kind of touches on that itself.
Okay. I've not actually seen that.
Okay, well, then I'll definitely not spoil it. Yeah. It kind of answers the question. And I think, are there any other answers to the question, why would a spirit stick around besides maybe they have no choice, revenge, to guide a loved one? Can anyone think of any other good reasons, really? I think those kind of nail it,
Yeah.
Just because? I mean, I don't know why you would, but why do people hang out at Walmart just because?
What if the thought of an afterlife is just terrifying to you?
Mm-hmm.
Step into this light with this being and,
and that's it.
And maybe.
I think that's a good point. It could just be, someone's indecisiveness,
There you go.
Not, being afraid of the unknown or, going over to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they get stuck in that, that plane where they become a spirit like that.
Yeah, that's a great point. My uncle passed away, and for 2 minutes, let me go ahead and put that. He's alive now, okay? That was going to be a tragic story. My uncle passed away. But no, he passed away for about 2 minutes, and he said that he saw 3 doors, and a voice told him to pick a door. And he says, I guess he picked the right one because here he is, That's, I'm like, I don't want to play game shows with my spirit, like, tell me where to go. Door A or door B, and label them, please.
That's an interesting story because you really only hear choice A or choice B.
Yeah.
From most people with a near-death experience like that.
That's it. I still don't really know what to make of that. It's scary. But I don't think you would just go into a state when your brain's shutting down and just be like, all right, well, I'm going to make this up for myself. You know, a couple new comments. If you think about how monks learn to clear their emotions to find peace in the afterlife.
So they're actually preparing themselves and trying to leave with a clean slate. So
that's a beautiful thing that none of us do anymore. We don't ever sit down and just be like, you know what, I'm going to cleanse the palate. I'm going to be great tomorrow. No negativity. I want to be better and I want to go out on the right note. We don't do that.
Yeah, I think that's something that's kind of missing from society these days. It's just personal reflection.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, adopt a religion and,
right.
Seek forgiveness for your sins or anything, but I don't think it takes that. It just takes sitting down with yourself and reflecting on your own behavior and your own attitude and trying to analyze, why you do the things you do and, really question that.
Has anyone heard Sweating Bullets by Megadeth? This is relevant, strangely. It's like, hello, me, meet the real me. He's having a self-reflection moment.
Yep.
I'm just putting that out there. H. Bryce says they may also have the belief that they don't deserve to have eternal peace. That is something we did not come up with at all.
Yeah, excellent point.
That is a great point. If people carry guilt, shame, etc., that could influence what happens to them after death, where they go. Hey, that's another great point. Yeah. You're on it. Thank you. What if it does? I mean, what if your weight carries a lot of weight and what happens? Maybe that's why monks tried to cleanse themselves. It all comes together, pretty well like that.
Yeah.
I want to say that I have to think that's true because it seems like the ones that stick around in a lot of the stories you hear are very emotionally driven.
Right.
It seems like they have purpose and maybe they are ashamed or they do feel guilty for something. Because we don't sit down and try to cleanse ourselves. That's a very old thing, monks in general.
Or if they are religious, maybe they have a fear of being judged.
Right. St. Peter, maybe they're afraid that they won't get into heaven. It could very much be on their belief system. That's true. Yeah.
If you believe in a hell, maybe it's, I've got things I need to make right so I don't end up there.
It's like you see in all the cartoons and stuff. It's like, can I go back down and do my good deeds so I can get into heaven?
Yeah.
But I mean, it does raise a funny point, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's thought of it, or that wouldn't be a cartoon. It makes a lot of sense.
Cartoons hold all of the answers.
Wikipedia, Facebook comments, and cartoons.
There you go.
That's all the truth you'll ever need in your life. Anyone else have any comments on the why? No.
That's all I've got.
All right. No one on the why. Well, so now on the other half. What if you don't have a choice? What if you do? Ultimately has a huge effect on how you spend eternity. And say there are no heavens or hells. Is there any consequence to murdering people in life and then just dying? And I'm not saying let's talk about a religionless, a godless existence. I'm just saying, as a spirit, do you think it would matter?
Well, that could maybe explain, why some spirits are more aggressive than others. Maybe they feel cheated. Mm-hmm. If they were like a religious person and, they found out, there's some kind of truth or, like maybe that could influence, the type of spirit they are,
It definitely could. And I think it would. Absolutely. I think your belief system, that becomes eventually just kind of who you are. Mm-hmm. And who's Zelda's in the room with us. If no one's aware. Actually, Megan is in the room with us, and she was kind of hiding out in the back. And hi, Megan.
I guess that's.
Let me just go ahead and unmute you and welcome you in. Hello, Megan. Welcome to the show.
Hey, sorry, I was trying to join chat, and I got a confirmation email that I could make a comment. So,
all right,
well, go you.
Make a comment.
Here I am.
Comment and hop right in. Well, Megan. What do you think? Before we move on then, since she's here, why do you think someone would stick around? Would you?
The comment I was going to make is a lot of times with residual hauntings, it's like when the death is really intense, whether it be like a crime of passion or Gettysburg is brought up a lot. There was a lot of energy spent in the event, so it just kind of sticks around.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was going to comment.
Well, it's a good comment. Don't feel Don't feel afraid to comment again. That was a great comment. I mean, it goes back
that would be like where you wouldn't have a choice too.
Yeah, there you go.
That would you'd just be a victim of your circumstances.
Look at this. Everybody's tying the knots. We can't manage to tie ourselves. There's a lot of good reasons, I think, that they would stick around. I think it becomes, like Ryan said, basically, it becomes personal to the kind of person you are to whether you would stick around or not. And I think that's just where you have to leave it without more answers. You know, there's a lot of good, valid reasons. Energy, shame, things like that, religion. But now let's get on to, you don't have a choice, and you're a spirit in a house. What do you do? Do you terrorize for the fun of it, or do you?
So that's kind of a different question. And it depends on why you were there. Once again, say you are attached to a house, to an object, or to a specific room. Where a traumatic event happened.
Yeah.
Maybe you need help in resolving or coming to peace with whatever happened in that area before you can, disperse on to the afterlife.
Maybe. One of my biggest questions always, whenever I talk about spirits, is, you're always in disbelief when you see something. You're like, there's no way I'm looking at this, or there's no way that door just opened by itself. Is it something messing with our psyche? Are they capable of that? Because of possessions and things, it's been at least proven as far as religion goes that spirits can enter the body. Can they choose to stick around just to be a jerk? Like what kind of powers do they have, and why so malevolent in cases, do you think? Does it go back to the tragedy, or they want to show you what they can do for the sake of it? Are they sure? Do they know what they're doing? Were they ever human? I mean, there's a lot of questions, but what do you think? Were
you the kind of person that took joy in, terrorizing others? Mm-hmm. Maybe you were a bully in life.
It boils down to ghosts were once people too.
Yeah.
I think that's where I don't know. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. Sorry, go ahead. There's a lot of things,
I was just going to say, I think, with just the moving chairs or stuff like that, that kind of sounds poltergeisty.
It does.
Where they weren't human and they're just there to play tricks. But when you get to a human that's haunting and maybe taking possession of a room, like when they remodel or something, they might lash out to show their power because it's being challenged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, maybe. There's just... I have this list of questions that I constantly want to ask, and then you're like, I'm just going to sidetrack the hell out of this thing. I'm going to drive this train off the tracks.
Right.
And you don't want to do that, but you want to talk. It's like it's a new movie. You want to talk about it. I think residual hauntings are one of the things that have always intrigued me the most, personally. It's like there's this footprint. Now, we were speaking about this earlier, and Brandon brought it up first. Is that a footprint in time that's playing? Is it more than just this guy died here, and right before he did, he walked to the kitchen? Is it like stuck in time? Is there even really a ghost involved, or is it just like a lapse in, like, I don't know, time-space continuum, a parallel universe? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to not be confused.
Residual hauntings are, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Me
Sometimes
too.
I don't think there is even a spirit, because, I think I can't remember what it was I was watching, but it was like a residual haunting, and like it wasn't a ghost or anything, but they kept catching phantom music playing, and it was like music from like the 30s, and it's like, why is that playing,
So I wonder what happened in that area then. Was there... I'm not sure what kind of music it was. But,
usually if it's like that, I'm going to say it's probably wartime. So a lot of people passed away then.
Yeah.
That's just my guess. I'm certainly not stamping my print on it. I would think so. That, there are a lot of emotions, a lot of death. But you may mean specifically there, when like why is the Big Bang?
Oh, yeah, not necessarily the time period, but why that particular room and that particular song, If it's something,
exactly.
If it's more of an upbeat thing, dance music even, perhaps there was, like a wedding or some other celebration there.
Yeah, it didn't necessarily have to be negative emotions.
Right.
but just a tremendous amount of emotion, enough to leave an imprint there in that area.
Maybe.
You know, and that's something, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sometimes when there's so much energy spent, like I heard about a case where a guy was, he did the ghost tours in this old mansion, and he saw the residual haunting of himself, you know. And he's not dead. He's not a ghost. He's not haunting anything.
That's interesting.
But they caught an EVP of his own voice. You know, and he's there daily, spending time there, exerting energy there.
Well, you just took what we thought we knew and you just twisted it all up. Good on you.
Thank you.
That's really neat. Gaiman George says, the creek-filled woman of Green Cove is a good question. She's a headless woman who washes her hair in the creek or let her lap. But why is she there? And that is a great question. Why is she there?
That's actually a local tale that I've heard a little about. Probably not enough to speak on, but we could definitely discuss that in detail sometime. But
that sounds residual to me.
The gist of it is
later. Yeah, I've heard of that too. But...
So you've heard the creek-filled woman?
Oh yeah,
legend.
Yeah, I've actually we went up there to kind of investigate it, but I guess I'll say that for another time.
Ooh, nice. Brandon on the scene. I like it. Let's get a microphone on this dude. Or let's just go out with him. We need to all go out and do that. But it sounds residual. You know, it does. It sounds like she's doing the same thing over and over. And, you know, I know for a fact that...
Because it's, and again, I don't know the specifics of the legend, but it's not really a malicious thing, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of scary as hell, right? I mean, does she do anything malicious, you know?
It's like, does washing your hair scare you? No. What about when you're dead? It's like, okay, yeah, all right. If somebody dead is doing it, it's probably scary. But you can say that about
her head is in her lap.
Yeah, I mean...
She's washing her hair in the river, but her head is in her lap.
But you have to know that it would be way easier that way. Head and shoulders. Yeah. I just had to say that. I'm sorry. Wow. That is so tasteless. I hope she doesn't haunt me for it. Because we believe you.
She's on her way here. I know.
Oh, God. She is on her way here. Anyway, I want to talk about local haunts again. We kind of did that already, but we didn't really knock it out of the park with, like, all the stories and in-depth. There's a few that I think, you know, we all find more personal than just like, hey, here's a list of stuff around us. You know, there's Dollywood and then there's whatever. We need to, like, really pick a couple that you guys and us are all passionate about and talk about it.
Absolutely.
Gaiman George brought up the Ghost Train of Damascus, and we've talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, we
would love to hear more. I was just saying, elaborate if you have anything on it. That'd be great.
No, if you can give us details. I mentioned it in the first episode.
Yeah, right.
We were talking about urban legends and local haunts and things, but I kind of talked about the end result of that. You know, when you hear the train whistle, don't turn around.
Run.
Because that's going to be the last thing that you see before it runs you down. So,
yeah, if you have any girth to add to that story, he really did. He touched on, you know, the end of it, which is...
Yeah, because I don't know the specifics, you know, are you not supposed to be on that trail after midnight or what the deal is with that? So
it's one of those things we need to know.
Yeah.
These are things we need to know.
Because I don't want to be run down by a ghost train, personally.
Remember we were talking about the wood booger on that first episode, and it was like, you were talking about the guy who was in your class, and y'all were talking about it, and he was like, don't go in them woods, and you're like, where's them woods? I need to know these things.
Yeah.
Don't tiptoe around the details, guy. Oh, Gaiman George has experienced it. Ooh. Well, tell us about it. If you'd rather type it here, or if
you want to go ahead and type it in, and then we'll read what you have to say there.
If you want to give us just a little bit, we can elaborate in another episode, and, you know, like take your whole story, or however you want to do it. It's up to you, but we would love to hear that. Because that is, I was actually listening to that today, and I was like, man, that's a cool story. That's a really neat story. Scary, but cool.
Yeah, and I want to know the specifics so I can avoid that fate myself.
Yeah. Megan, what was your update? Let's have that first, if everybody's all right.
And then we'll move on to the creek-filled woman.
Yes, the creek-filled woman.
Okay, so Ryan had brought up the Tavern in Abingdon.
Yes,
and I have a friend who used to manage the place. I asked him about it, if anything ever happened to him specifically, and he said worked with several people that had several stories, but there was only one thing that happened to him. They had closed down. They were waiting on the dishwasher to get finished cleaning up. let's see, there's 2 doors. The dishwasher was upstairs, the front door and the back door. Either way, if he came downstairs to go through one of the doors, they would have seen him from where they were hanging out. And each of the doors make like the little alarm, the little beep, 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 beep.
Yeah.
So the guy was upstairs and they heard the beep, 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 beep. And there was nobody around. Nobody did anything. And so he went to check the door just to see if somebody was trying to come in from the outside. And he had already padlocked it.
Ooh.
So that door didn't open.
So the door doesn't like open enough, even with the padlock, to like set the alarm off, I assume, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so the alarm went off without, you know, the ability for the door to have opened.
Okay.
So, and like I said, some people that he worked with claimed that, you know, chairs would be moved and stuff, but that never happened to him. That's just the one that he experienced.
And then you question if they're trying to do more and they don't have the energy, or why hang around and do that? Why open a door and move a chair? Is it you just trying to get through and say, hey, I'm here, help me, or hey, I'm here, be scared, or hey, I'm here? No good reason for it.
I mean, it definitely sounds like a hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
You know, because they're setting off an alarm that you know, announces somebody's here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually a great point. It's like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
Like, I just came in. What's up, guys?
The only reason for the
So-
alarm is, I'm here.
Yeah.
That's got to be frustrating for the spirit if they are, you know, needing our assistance. They're stuck on this plane, and something has to be done to help them disperse.
That's
Like-
another point. What if they're scared and they're wanting us to help them?
Yeah,
They're like, what's happening with
can-
me? Why can't you see me?
yeah, and what does that tell an opening door? You know,
Mhm.
we
Maybe it just knew the alarm, you know, would alert
Yeah.
people to it. I don't know.
But what can we do to help?
Yeah.
That's got to be a frustrating thing for a spirit that's stuck on this plane, you know, and they need assistance. How do you convey that to the living?
Is it one of those things that we're maybe never supposed to know and we just won't? It's like it's blocked, or is it just we just don't know yet? I mean, I guess there's no way to
Well-
answer that question properly, but
If we want to jump to a different theory on that, you know, we've all heard that you know, babies and small children, you know, are more sensitive to
Mhm.
spirits and other paranormal things.
you've got a little
Um,
story about that with one of your little boys.
Yeah, we can
That
talk about that in a
yeah,
bit.
yeah, okay.
Some people postulate that they are more sensitive to the paranormal and spirits, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a skill that you have at that age, but we lose as we grow older because we're not trained in, you know, keeping up with it or developing that skill.
Right.
Some people have drew the similarity to you know, babies being able to swim. You know, if you hold a child down into the water, they'll begin to, you know, doggy paddle essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something, you know, if you don't do that frequently enough with the child, it's something that they just kind of forget.
Yeah.
It's not an essential skill. So the theory goes that, you know, we have this fifth sense or sensitivity to the unknown paranormal, but how do you develop that? How do you work that sense and to convince your mind that that's something that's essential, something to keep on? So
And you're so
this-
young, you don't know to do it yourself, obviously.
Yeah, so some people also theorize that, you know, people that are empaths or have, you know, psychic abilities are ones that were somehow able to retain that skill
Mm-hmm.
from their childhood. So if there was a way, you know, we could develop that skill further in children, the end result would be more psychics and empaths and people
Right.
that are sensitive to the paranormal.
I mean, that's absolutely true. Because, again, you have a story about that, and I've heard many stories about that, you know, children passing away and coming back with a story. And
So I guess that's kind of relevant now. I can kind of
Mhm.
explain that.
yeah,
story.
go ahead.
So
Let's hear it. It's a good
I
story.
was in my dining room with my oldest son. He was around 1 at the time, I'd say. And I was feeding him his meal. He was in the high chairs. I was feeding him, and he would make eye contact with me for a while, and then I noticed he would look up and over my shoulder, and he would start laughing at something beyond me. And I kind of felt the hairs on my neck stand on end. It was a really weird sensation. It was enough to make me actually turn my head and look behind me. I turned back to him and brought his attention back to me. He's eating again. Then he starts to do it again. He looks past me and he starts laughing, like something behind me is entertaining him, doing something that he finds hilarious, because he's like cackling. It was really bizarre. And at that time, I felt almost like a presence in the room, very eerie. Not necessarily that we were in danger, but just that creepy, like somebody's watching you kind of feeling. Still unnerving, but I didn't really feel like we were in danger. And at that point, I just kind of sat back and observed him, and he was, looking up in that area and kind of interacting with that area. And at that time, I decided, okay, this is kind of creeping me out. Let's finish dinner in the other room. So I picked him up, and I noticed for the last time as we were leaving the room, he turned his head and kind of arched his neck around to look past me again as we were leaving the room.
Shoo, that's creepy.
Yeah,
so,
it is.
I don't know. And I should note, too, that I've never really experienced anything other than that. I've never experienced anything paranormal in my home or with him or anything.
That's pretty stout, though,
So,
for one.
Yeah, I like to, when I revisit that memory, I like to think that perhaps it was a loved one, that has passed on.
Sure, yeah.
One of my grandparents, perhaps. That's how I like to remember that memory. I mean, I was pretty shaken at the time when it happened, but again, it was more of that sensation of somebody's watching me, or like there's another presence in the room that I'm not familiar with or don't understand. So that was I never felt like, oh, this is a dangerous thing that's among us.
That makes me think of
whatever it was entertaining a baby. So
have you ever heard? I'm sure you have. Everybody's heard it probably, that ghosts are always there. They're everywhere. We just can't see them. That they're here right now.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to that theory. Or babies, even animals, dogs, things like that. Are they able to sense those things?
Yeah. Is this happening right here beside us right now? We just don't know it. I've thought about that one a lot too. That's one of those that I've always pondered as quite likely happening. Like, that not all of them have gotten through properly. Yeah. If so, it would be like, we've done science on this for 100 years. It's totally proven. It's just not enough. So they can't all get through,
Yeah.
That to me is probably what's going on. But then what does that say? Does that say that it's just another plane of existence and they're living lives and they're aware of us, but we're not aware of them? It's a bowl that you can dig down the bottom of, for sure.
So that's the end of my story. Do we want to hear about the Brandon's or
Game of George? I'll tell you what. Let's Brandon, let's do your story second here. Let's elaborate a little bit on this ghost train of Damascus, if that's okay.
Okay.
And then we'll get to your story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Ryan, would you like to read it, or?
Let's see.
I will move this over so you can see it real good. All right, and this is quoting Gaiman George.
Okay, so he's kind of delivered his story.
I feel like I need
chat here.
and some that going on. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so here's his account. It all started one night in our backyard after playing a game of hide and seek. It was 5 of us, and it was about midnight. We were standing on my deck talking when suddenly we heard a train whistle blowing in the distance. We all kind of looked at each other and thought, what? Was that a train? Suddenly it blew louder behind us, and on the mountain we could see a light, kind of like the one on the front of a train, racing across the mountain, probably going about 45 miles per hour, I would guess. There was no way a vehicle of some sort could travel through that mountain due to the steepness and all of the trees that close together. So I know the mountain that he's talking about, just to kind of sidestep. He's right. There are no trails or, forgotten rail, lines or anything up there for something like that to be traveling on.
Wow.
So, let's see the rest of this here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's no way I lost my place.
Basically, they knew exactly what it was and did not come back outside. Booked it to his room.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely a good, honest, natural reaction. No question about it. Well, that is awesome. And no worries. We're not grammar Nazis here. Spell how you'd like, sir. He got through it just fine, and that's what matters.
There we go.
Yeah. That's such a cool story. I had never heard that, but I'm not, from anywhere near Damascus exactly.
Yeah, so you'll hear several different accounts from people that live around there about the one I heard, was related to actually being run over by it.
Oh God.
But there are sightings of, train lights and train whistles that, can't be explained.
And he says, and trains haven't run through Damascus in over 70-some years.
Right,
so
exactly.
That lends a lot more to it. It's one of those old wooden train whistles you get at the fair.
Yeah, we're not talking like, the freight trains of today. I mean, it's like what you're hearing at Tweetsie Railroad, exactly.
Tweetsie Railroad. God, I haven't heard that name in forever.
Yeah.
Right on. That is taking it back here. That's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is awesome.
So that brings up another interesting.
I want to ask real quick, was that your first dip into the paranormal? Was that the night you decided that the paranormal was something, or had you already kind of had other things happen? And have you had them since? Because that one would break me if I was like, nope, can't happen. Shit, that's a train. Yeah, all right. Well, it's legit then. I would be sold on the spot.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
when
not
thinking,
like a chair sliding because the house is on a hill. That's like the real deal right there.
When you consider things like UFOs in the sky, you can always go back to, well, that was some kind of plane, some kind of aircraft or a meteorite or something. But how do you logically explain
in the sky?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
How do you logically explain a train? And on that note,
well, it starts with a system of tracks.
Exactly.
Oh, you mean logically a ghost train?
A ghost train. Yeah, like
there's no tracks at all.
Yeah. How do you find the logic of that in your head after just witnessing that?
Yeah.
Like, where do
you can't. You try. As well as I know. We've not talked about sleep paralysis yet, but you've kind of pinned a thing or two on that. You have a story or two that's really creepy about you think sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
Maybe just whatever. You always tell yourself like that wasn't real. I was dreaming, or it was the wind. It wasn't really a ghost. You always make up something. But I think eventually you come around to the fact that it's possible, and that's probably what happened. He says that he did see shadow people when he was 5. That is not okay. Were they nice? I actually have a friend. I don't ever see him anymore. It's a shame, too, because his stories blow my mind. He's actually got, like, a mental disability, and I don't mean that in a bad way, obviously. He's a great guy. I love him so much, and I miss him. I wish he would come back around. But he's always been, like, more in tune. Mm-hmm. And he told me that he would lay in bed at night, and he's, like, the most honest guy in the world. It's like he almost doesn't know better than to just tell people the truth, which I love about him. That's awesome. And he said he would lay in the bed at night and he would see like shadow people on his wall. And I was like, well, what's that like? He said, well, it's kind of like, at first it's kind of like a person. And then whenever you see them go across the floor flat, you realize that you have no idea what you're looking at. He said the ones he saw would come up at the foot of his bed and like look maliciously at him. He said he felt very scared, like he would run across his house. And then as he got older, he would hear conversations in other rooms, and like nobody else could hear them but him. He's not crazy by any stretch. He's not. I mean, I'm not trying to pin it on that. He would just hear conversations. He said he would hear a girl talking to a guy about, going shopping or something. And the door would kind of creak open. No one would hear the voices, but they'd see the door creak. So that lends itself to some legitimacy, I think, because the door opens like after their conversation. he can tell you about the conversation and the door, and you only see the door.
So it sounds like another example of a residual event.
Maybe. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. He just says it's scary. He came over. We were talking about ghosts one night. He came over to the house. He said, I was sitting in my chair, and an arm lifted up out of my arm while my arm was sitting there.
Whoa.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he said he was sitting like this in his chair, which I wish I could show you. I'm basically sitting straight in my chair with my arms on down, both.
On the armrests?
Yeah, armrests. And he said an arm lifted out of his.
Wow.
Like it was getting up. He stayed here for a while that night. Had a few cigarettes and he didn't want to go home. I was like, I don't blame you.
Yeah, I can't blame you there.
Gaiman George says, I saw the shadow of a small child behind our toilet in the middle of the night while I was peeing. We all got to do it. And booked it down the hallway, continuing to pee all the way to his bed. I can't fault you for that. That is absolutely the way I would react.
I'm 35 years old, and I'd probably do the same thing.
Yeah. Yes. Well, we all know you don't pinch it anyway. But in that situation, even if you could, you don't. God, that's terrifying. Like, between the wall and the toilet, I mean, I guess you would know.
Yeah, I mean,
It was the toilet like base. I mean, it's always, isn't it, against the wall? So explain the toilet to me, please. Yeah. I want to know of the fixings in your house. But, like, was there room, or would it just be like a shadow on the wall? Like, I assume there's no room to stand behind the toilet, yeah?
No.
Okay,
no.
yeah. Didn't think there would be. That's terrifying. As a child, nonetheless. I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, I
Did you know these stories from him?
No.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
we're bonding here, too.
Things, yeah.
We're all learning stuff. That's great. Anybody else in the chat, by the way, if you have stories, we would love to hear them. We won't make fun of them. We really do. We have our own, so who would we be to judge, right?
Exactly. We've all had strange things.
Yeah, we really have.
Can't be explained.
He says, and I'm talking like skinny, sickly, small, crawling child. Oh, my God.
Oh.
That is not okay at all.
Well, I'm glad I don't live there anymore.
It's very good that you all have moved away. Jesus, that's terrifying. I'm trying to process it, but I can't imagine what that would have been like. Even now, like you said, at our age now, there's no way I can process that properly. But I think that's the truth. In the moment, you spend your whole life trying to process it. You can't. Because we don't know anything about it. And why would it look that way? Because it wanted to scare you? Could it have looked like a unicorn if it wanted to? I mean, that's just raises more questions, I guess.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always wondered about. If a spirit or whatever this may be is seeking help, why do it in such a terrifying manner?
Why take the form of the crooked man or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah. Why wouldn't they notice, oh, hey, this kid watches He-Man or Ninja Turtles or something. Take the form of Michelangelo.
Imagine,
hey, dude, I need your help.
Totally need your help, guy. I mean, but how would you tell that story? You know, people are like, ooh, the skinny, sickly guy. Okay, that's terrifying. And it's like Michelangelo was like, dude, let's have some pizza and help me out of here. This sucks.
Yeah, I curled up behind my toilet and had pizza with my
Right. We totally had pizza. Yeah, you don't believe that. It's funny to think that Michelangelo is less believable than ghosts are, but I want to say one thing, one truth that Ryan and I have always decided on. You can talk about walking off a cliff, and it's like, man, that would suck. You can talk about somebody shooting a nail gun at you, and you're like, oh, God, that'd be terrible. It doesn't shake you up, though. You sit down at night, and you talk about ghosts, you're not going to sleep that well. Something about it shakes your soul to its core. There is something so terrifying and unknown that, I don't know, it's almost impossible to process, and you just try to change your mind and move on. You never come up with an answer. It's like the uncanny valley. It's like it's too real or something.
I think a part of that is not wanting to experience it yourself.
Right.
And when you talk about things, like a ghost just materialized through my wall, who's to say that wouldn't just happen to you?
Yeah, right.
There's being afraid of a guy shooting a nail gun at you,
It's like, yeah, that would suck, but you can understand that one a little better. It's a human
you can kind
thing.
of wrap your head around that. But
He says that's actually why, as a grown man, he sleeps in the light. I can't blame you at all.
oh wow,
I would too. I'm not kidding. You know, I used to.
not saying anything against that either. I mean, had I experienced that too, you know, I can certainly I get that.
You guys, head over to the forum. He says he's going to draw a picture of it and put it up on the forum so we can all kind of see what he saw. The forum is over at our website, midnightspookhouse.com. Brandon, you have a great story.
Yeah, this is kind of related to the shadow people too.
Yeah, it was natural progression.
So let's hand it over to Brandon. I've been anxious to hear about this.
Please do. Tell us about it, Brandon.
All right. Yeah, this happened, I guess, about 5 years ago at a place we used to live at. And it didn't happen immediately. We lived there probably a good 6 months before anything ever started happening. And it was kind of a slow progression. Like, it was just small things. I guess you might want to call it like, it wasn't really like poltergeist activity. It was just kind of a nuisance, like, you know, we'd get up in the morning, like we had a key ring beside the door. You know, our keys would be off the ring and like down the hall. When I would come home from work, like the stuff I had on the fireplace mantle would like be knocked over. And, you know, I never really thought too much of that. We had these big French doors in the living room, and at night, you know, I'd kind of get like an eerie feeling, you know, like somebody was watching. It kind of progressively got worse, you know, over a couple of weeks to where it got so bad, like, if I was downstairs watching television, like, I would cut my show short just to get out of that room. I'd just go on upstairs and go to bed. And like I said, you know, I still hadn't really put too much into it until, I guess about a week later, I was downstairs in the living room. I'd kind of dozed off. And when I woke up, you know, I noticed, kind of felt like a breeze on me. And it took me a second to kind of get my bearings, and I looked over, and the front door was standing wide open.
Jesus.
Like, I'll just go ahead and say I was on the couch. You know, we're talking like midnight. You know, I was in my underwear. You know, I ran to the door because I thought, you know, I had a 4-year-old at the time, so I thought maybe, you know, she had got out, or, you know, my wife had, you know, went out or something, you know. So I went out there to investigate, and nobody was out there. They were both upstairs asleep. I know the door was locked. Went ahead and kind of dismissed that as well, you know. Didn't think too much of it. That's when everything kind of started kicking up a notch after that. I think it was about 2 or 3 nights later. Let's see. I was upstairs. We were in the bedroom. Actually, all 3 of us were in the bed. We were watching a documentary about the ocean. It was really odd. Like, I don't ever remember falling asleep at all, because you know how sometimes you can be aware of your dream, like you're aware that you're dreaming?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I never went into that state. Like, the movie, you know, I could hear the movie, see the movie, but, you know, I was drawn to the edge of the stairs. It didn't feel like I was voluntarily getting up out of the bed. It felt like something else was compelling me to do it. When I got to the edge of the banister, I remember looking down the stairs, and the kitchen light was on. On the wall beside the stairs, I could see the shadow of, like, this man. He had like a wide brim hat on. You know, like, it was a big, big dude. It was really odd. Like, I wasn't scared of it. I was, like, it invoked a lot of anger. Like, I got really, really angry.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to get down the stairs to it, like, as quickly as possible, but like I was glued in place.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I can still remember, like, looking down at my hands, and I had white knuckles, like, grabbing the banister, like I was trying to jump over the banister to get down there as fast as I could, but I couldn't. Like, I was glued in place.
So you felt like this thing was sort of taunting you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was a real strange emotion. Like, I think if somebody had been in front of me, like, I could have killed them. Like, it was that kind of anger. Like, just really, really fierce anger. Now, that time, actually, it just kind of, I remember just kind of waking up, being back in the bed. and I was still watching, and it was kind of over as fast as it started. You know, it freaked me out pretty bad. I got pretty shook that night. You know, I told Jade about it the next day, and, you know, it kind of went on. I guess about a week passed. You know, I kind of forgot about it. Well, then I was downstairs in the living room where I was saying we had those big French doors, and I was watching Dexter one night on the couch. And I kind of had the same sensation kind of wash over me. Like I kind of felt involuntary movement. I remember leaning my head back on the back of the armrest of the couch, and like I could look down the hallway and see the kitchen. And in the exact same place where I seen it the first time, that shadow was sitting there. And the same thing happened. Like I got intense anger, just rushed over me. I was completely paralyzed. I couldn't get up off the couch. I was trying my damnedest to get off the couch, but I couldn't.
That's really, it's one thing I wanted to point out, that I've never known you to be an angry guy either.
No, not at all.
No, I'm not. No, not at all.
And
but it was just
can I point
really,
out real fast that
wide-brimmed hat.
Yeah. But yeah, we talked about that, was it last week, the Phantom Hat Man in Virginia, of all places? There was a story about that.
Yeah, so this wide-brimmed hat, figure gets around some art.
Yeah.
Or
go ahead, Ron.
There's something to it, because there are all kinds of stories and reports of people seeing, a shadow. Usually appears as a shadowy figure, but the wide-brimmed hat is like the big takeaway that everyone notices.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, well, let me go ahead and finish. So I was, staring at the shadow. I was angry, trying my best to get up off the couch. I actually did manage to kind of knock myself off the couch. Like I rolled over into the floor, but I was still paralyzed. And like right before everything kind of stopped, still gives me the heebie-jeebies to think about it. But I remember looking up. I actually seen myself standing over top of me.
Wow.
And the facial expression is what stays with me even today. Because I had like a grin that's a little too big or something. I don't know. Something was off. And like I said, it was that same emotion carried over. Like it wasn't fear. Like it was just anger. Like I was so angry. I was so frustrated because I couldn't move. I kind of just closed my eyes. It was kind of like when your hand or your leg falls asleep. Like it took me about 15, 20 minutes, and I kind of felt the anger, subsiding, and like eventually I could move my arms and my legs, and I finally, was able to get up and collect myself and, go upstairs. But I don't think I slept a wink that night. But
I bet not. Yikes.
Yeah, it was freaky. But then I got to the next day, I went to work the next day with little to no sleep, and I actually worked with somebody that lived in an apartment complex, and I worked with a couple that lived a couple doors down. And they, noticed that I didn't look all that great. They asked me if I was okay, and I told her, I said, well, I've been having some weird stuff happening at the house. And, I seen her eyes, light up. And she was like, let me guess, are you seeing shadow people? And I was like, well, okay, that's weird. I was like, not really shadow people, but I'm seeing one specific. But apparently she had been having almost the exact same experience 2 doors down.
Whoa.
Almost every night. But hers was a little different. She kept catching shadow people out of the corner of her eye, darting across the room or something, So that kind of validated, that there was something going on, because I definitely hadn't told anybody about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice to hear somebody else, say that they were having similar experience, just a couple doors down. So,
yeah. Sort of validates you and maybe makes you feel a little less alone with it.
Yeah. Actually, we started investigating back behind the house. The more we talked about it, or experiences were pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're having that feeling of being watched, you know, from the back of the house. And we got to investigate in the woods behind the complex, and we actually found an abandoned graveyard up there.
Wow.
Oh, no.
That had a lot of sunken in graves. You know, you could tell it had been years and years, you know, nobody had been taking care of it.
Mm-hmm.
There was dates, you know, from the 1800s on, you know, a few of the headstones that you could read. And we even went as far as went to the library to try to see, you know, who owned it or, you know, if it was a family plot. And we couldn't find any record at all of that cemetery. So we actually went up there a couple days later and kind of cleaned the place up, cleaned up all the headstones we could.
Were there any kind of markings on them at all?
Not many, and it's like the headstones were so old, a lot of them, like, you couldn't even read the names. But,
wow.
You know, most of them were broken, vandalized, you know, things like that. I'd say in all there's probably maybe a little over a dozen spots, you know, so obviously it had to have been like a family site or something.
Maybe it was built on property that wasn't properly taken from the family. Like maybe it was forfeited in some point, and then then the family was bitter about it, and then maybe they're like, "Well, screw these people. We're gonna come deal with them." I mean, you never know, right?
Yeah, you don't. You never know. You know, this had affected my daughter as well because she had actually told my wife and I about the black man in her room.
Gosh.
And, you know, it doesn't take long for, you know, us to put two and two together, you know, that maybe she was seeing the same thing I was, the shadow.
Now, are you living in the same place still?
No, we moved out of there. And, you know, after we cleaned up the graveyard and I hung some really big, thick curtains on those French doors, a lot of the activity subsided.
Wow.
The only thing that happened after that, I never experienced anything as intense as those 2 nights, but my wife had sleep paralysis really bad for a couple months.
Oh, God.
Like where she would wake up and have like night terrors and like, you know, she said she would be trying to like cry out to me for help, but couldn't.
I've actually personally experienced that. It's very terrifying.
Yeah, people, I think, write them off as just sleep paralysis, but I think there's something more to it. There's something controlling the sleep paralysis in a lot of cases, I believe.
Well, she said she felt a presence in the room, and that's what was making her scared.
I bet so. Ryan's story of that was pretty scary. I mean, I think he wants to write it off as sleep paralysis, but I think even if that's what it was, I really do think something maybe controls that sometimes. Just your story, it sounds eerily similar to these things we're listening to, you know. I'm not trying to bring that up for you. I'm just saying.
Yeah, like I said, I've experienced sleep paralysis myself, or at least I'm maintaining that this is sleep paralysis. Yeah, I awoke in the middle of the night, and I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I was awake, completely paralyzed, and it felt like there were people in the room that shouldn't be. This has happened to me twice before. The first time I just felt like there were presences in the room. You try to call out, scream for help or whatever, and you just can't muster any words. I mean, you just have these things looking at you. The second time it occurred, I remember someone standing. When I go to bed at night, you know, I turn all the lights off in the house. I remember waking up, again, paralyzed, unable to speak or anything, and looking into the hallway. The light was on in the hallway. I know I didn't leave that on. And there was a figure standing in my doorway. And I remember calling out to it and unable to speak, you know, attempting to yell at this thing. When I was finally able to muster words, I yelled out, "Who are you? What do you want?" That's when I woke up. So then I shot straight up out of bed. All the lights were still off as I had left them. You know, I was obviously terrified.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Your basement, I remember I used to have some really weird, realistic dreams down there when I used to stay there.
Yeah, do you want to tell us about that?
I mean, I can.
So we're revisiting
Sure.
traumatic memories.
Yeah, your house is terrifying. Cool. So one night, we'll touch on yours too in just a minute. You know what? Anybody have any comments about yours? Let me not go ahead and push my way in. I've heard that story multiple times, and it scares me every time. Not because I've been there and even slept there. It's because, Jesus Christ, that's scary.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable. I know I say that a lot. That's going to be my phrase. That's not acceptable. But it's not, damn it. It's why would they want you to be afraid? It's like, honestly, I feel like that would tie in more to aliens than anything. It's like, hey, we're here. You can't do anything about it. What do you think? What's up, bro? And I know you don't want to hear that because that's like your biggest fear on earth, but it could go either way. What if they're not that different?
No, we didn't really want to get into UFOs or anything tonight, but, the theories are out there that, aliens aren't really from space.
Right.
The way we think of it. It's more like beings from an alternate reality, parallel reality, or maybe the space in between realities.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Yikes.
So, what are you looking at here?
We are about to look at the picture from Gammy George that he drew. It's right there. Okay, so sitting in a frog-like position, crawling. Oh my God, no. And then there behind the toilet, and then it's on the forum. Go look at that. My God, that's scary. What does that say? Infant-shaped skull and curved spine. Those are words that shouldn't go together. Those are things you don't want to see,
Sitting behind the toilet.
Yeah. And why behind the toilet? I'm not even going to make a joke about that. I mean, seriously, that's a weird place. Like,
Shadow people.
Yeah. I've heard more stories from my friend about them, and they're just absolutely terrifying. And I think Brandon and you may potentially have been looking at a shadow person. Didn't you say they were black, like solid black? The thing you saw in the hall or at the doorway?
It was during my second dream. It was solid, yet out of focus, I guess you could say. Like it seemed like a solid being there. You just couldn't focus on it, just fuzzy around the edges.
Yeah, that's scary. I don't know if that would be classified as that kind of makes me lean towards aliens a little bit because, it just feels like they don't really want you to understand them. So they might, kind of go incognito in that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm not going to try to say that it is, but I'm not going to say it isn't. Do you want to hear my story? Should I save it for another day? What do you think?
Go ahead and tell us.
Let's go for it.
Okay. All right. I can go ahead and tell the story then. It's so real, whenever you start to tell your own story, you're spooked out by everybody else's, and then you start to tell your own, and you're like, I don't want to relive this, please. But before, his basement was renovated, I slept down there by myself one night. I don't like basements. I'm going to go ahead and put that out there. You have a man cave and all, but it's way back in the corner, and I don't like basements. I don't think anybody's ever stood at the top of a staircase to a basement. I'm like, well, this place is going to be awesome. They're like, what's down there? That's where you bury bodies and such. Anyway, so I woke up. Well, I thought I did anyway. I felt like I was completely awake. And I looked over, and I get chills thinking about it. There was a preacher standing in front of your back door down there. And he was just looking at me holding a Bible, and he was kind of waving his hand. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? Like a preacher broke in? Because, this was all real to me. And he just starts talking about prophecies of the end and things. And then he's like, are you saved? And I was like, I don't know. How do you know? Because who knows? I don't know. And I said, I hope so. I just remember that I was scared of him because it was like he was prophesizing that something horrible was about to cause my death. And I needed to prepare and feel saved so that I could go peacefully or something. I don't know. And then it's like I looked away. It almost felt like, if this makes sense, it almost felt like I then realized I was asleep. Like I saw myself laying there. It's like I was on the bed looking at him, but I also saw myself laying on the bed, as weird as that sounds.
Dreams are hard to explain.
They are.
Yeah, I can relate to that. That's kind of similar to the way my experiences were.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, but it's a thing. And then I remember rolling back over, and he was gone. And then I just felt really freaked out. I woke up, I shot up, and like the room was just, there was no sound or anything anyway. I don't think there was a fan, or I think the humidifier might have been running normally, but like dead silence. And it felt like, when you wake up and you're like, oh God, that's not real. But this time it was like I woke up and it was.
Yeah.
It's like I really just went through that, and then I woke up. I honestly thought that something for the rest of that night was going to like come out of one of the doors. And then there was another time I was in there, and there was like, I could have swore I saw something come out of like where your washer and dryer is. Just walk right in the room, and it looked evil. I don't know, did I see it or did I not? You tell yourself these things. I don't know.
Think you did, because I don't live in a haunted house.
He absolutely, but once things got moved around, and it's like it stopped. I never felt that way in there again. But I swear before, you don't want to see a preacher preaching to you and asking you if you've been saved, and because you feel like I'm screwed. Now what? Like, what's coming, guy?
Anyway.
Yeah, not in the middle of the night.
And I honestly, I don't know the extensive history of my house. I know that it was built in the 50s.
Didn't you say you had a dream down there once? Like during a nap or something?
I don't know. I've had all kinds of strange dreams wherever I decide to take a nap.
That's true. Yeah.
Naps aren't good for me. To my knowledge, I want to say that the house stayed in the same family. Mm-hmm. So I think my family is the first, like, outside of that line to own the house. Because the people that sold it to me, they were the granddaughters of, the couple that lived there before.
Mm-hmm. It's an older house, so, the history, God knows what it really lends itself to.
So I don't really know.
And I just want to say that I'm not claiming mine's a ghost story, but when you wake up and you're sure that just happened, there's still no doubt in my mind that I know that. I know logically there was no preacher that broke in and was asking me about that, but at the same time, I know that it happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can't logically tell yourself that, though. It's very much like your all stories. It's just you tell yourself there's just no way that's happening, but it does. And what does it mean?
I think that's the easiest way for us to cope and move on from a happening that was your direct experience. What I'm trying to say. Like,
yeah,
when you experience it for yourself, you kind of try to come up with coping mechanisms to make it fit in reality.
Yeah, we force these boundaries around things so that we understand them when they're comfortable for us. But realistically, these things don't play by our boundaries, and that's what we can't comprehend. That's why science is like, no, that's not real because we can't explain it. But the fact is it is real. We just still can't explain it.
Yeah.
You can't measure that. There's no meter for it. It is what it is. Well, that's one of my stories. I have more. You have more. Is there anything any of you'd like to add? We can always come back later, and we will. We're going to do lots of ghost shows. But if there's anything in particular on any of these stories anyone would like to add, because if not, we'll move on to the reader questions, the listener questions. We wrote down the reader, but we're the only ones truly reading it right now. Listener questions. All right, well, Gaiman George has another shadow person story. And in the meantime, I will sit here and try to entertain you. Megan.
Yeah.
Do you have a ghost story?
No.
No. Well, I got shut down really quick.
I've never really experienced any ghostly activity, so I'm lucky that way.
No, you are. You're really lucky. Some of us have, I think it's great that we're all here together and we're all talking about it, but at the same time, I don't think anyone's ever had like one of those experiences and been like, I'm so glad that just happened. Brandon, aren't you so glad that happened to you?
No.
It was super awesome. No, nobody's ever glad that stuff happens to them. it creates a brotherhood of people who are terrified and are in denial, essentially. That's where we all are. I do want to say something we meant to do at the top of the store, or the top of the show, and I completely forgot. Dubbed the British X-Files, they're going to be released soon. I know this was supposed to be at the top with your alien news. I'm sorry. I forgot. In Britain, well, let me just read it to you. An official government UFO dossier that's referred to as Britain's X-Files will be released in less than 2 months after the pre-Brexit general election forced yet another delay to the publication. Politics delaying publications, that doesn't happen, does it?
Never.
No, why would it? They want you to know everything. So the National Archives said it's planning to release a cache of about 18 files in the middle of June after the UK elections concluded. It's expected to include material relating to mysterious and unsolved encounters that's been likened to the Roswell UFO incident in America. Alien hunters lit up over the weekend after a German paranormal news website called Gringenslaft Aktuell, I'm sorry, I botched that, claimed Brexit had caused the delay. Of course they did. This is what they do. Which follows a long string of other publication postponements. Experts since that conspiracy theorists were likely to seize on any delay as evidence the government is dead set on keeping the truth about aliens away from the public. I will not argue with that. That has been something that the governments, I think, have always... Now, there are governments in the world who's like, hey, we got documents and stuff. Let's talk about it. And then there's governments who's like, that don't happen. There's minutes missing from the footage. No, somebody went to the can. It's cool. You know, like it didn't happen. So I'm sorry that I came in and I sort of derailed us there, but that's going to be really cool. That's going to be an episode all its own, I think. The X-Files. The X-Files are coming out. How cool is that?
Pretty excited about that.
Yeah, now if they'll only drop some more American ones besides the Mars story. Brandon, did you get a chance to listen to the Mars story that Ryan dug up the other day?
The CIA
Yeah.
experience. Yeah, I did.
Oh.
That was really odd.
Right?
Yeah.
For those of you listening who aren't sure, that was what, episode 2? Yeah. We're only a few in. See, we're so unorganized. But it's it'll blow your mind. It's from the CIA website, and it's discussing this very alien to us, if nothing else, life that is on the verge of being extinct. And these people are just talking about it. It's like, hey, I'm out here and there's this dog who needs help. Can you send somebody? Except that it's about aliens, essentially.
Right.
It's terrifying, and it's really awesome at the same time. For those who haven't heard it, go check out episode 2. And for the rest of us, let's discuss a couple of questions from the listeners, shall we?
Yeah, I think we've kind of been doing that all night.
We will.
That's been
You know
fun.
what?
Yeah.
We have, but these folks might not be here with us, and if they're not, listen later, and you'll
Yeah,
hear
these
it.
were written into us.
The first one is, you go ahead. You take the first one.
Let's see.
I mean, we've kind of touched on this one, but let's...
Yeah, so Holly wrote to us, why do you think spirits reach out? So now we kind of touched on that.
We did, but you know what? We didn't have a lot of answers. Besides that, we think maybe... I think one of the bigger ones we came up with is maybe they're looking for help. Maybe they're scared.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? That's what I would.
Well, like I said, maybe they're trying to influence their loved ones' lives.
Very well could be, yeah. Megan, what do you think? I don't think you really chimed in on that much.
I don't know. There's so many reasons. I feel like if we go back to they didn't have a choice, it's always a cry for help would be the obvious answer, in my opinion. Help me get to the other side.
We need to all pick a side on whether they had a choice and then debate. I mean, it's almost like you need to do that. Yeah, that's it, though. Because we're all like, well, if they don't have any choice, and then if they do have a choice, it's like we need to all pick a side and argue from that point of view.
Well, you go pick a ghost and ask him, did you have a choice?
That's not the point.
Well,
an episode later, you get my point. We're going to have to, each of us are going to have to play the devil's advocate in one direction.
Yeah.
And just be like, this is the truth. Here's why. I think that's a future show.
But I feel like there's just multiple, situations.
We're going to tackle
I think
those,
what Megan is saying is it's really different on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah,
sure it is.
That's
yeah.
exactly what I'm saying.
But we have no proof on, an overall. That would be an overall thing, most likely. You either can or you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely the cases are going to differ, but we've got to come from a point of view. And that's really difficult to do when none of us are sure what we think.
Yeah.
Not that we're uninformed. We're
Something to stew on for a bit.
It is. And you guys, please, if you have a point of view on that, debate. Let's all get back together and talk about it from a point of view sometime. I think that's the best way to honestly go about it. Okay, so another story from, I'll tell you what, hold that thought, Gaimans George, and let me do this other question that I have here, and then we'll grab that. Can animals sense spirits and other paranormal things? And this is from Julie, who would like to keep her last name private, which we respect.
I absolutely think there's always the story about a dog having cornered something and is barking at what you think is nothing.
Yeah. That happened in our first show, actually. Remember that, Ryan? Lupe was losing it.
Yeah, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of... that was right when we were talking about wood boogers, too.
It was. And then Ryan's like, hold on, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to see what's up with Lupe. And then I'm like, I'm having this inner dialogue, like, it'd be awesome if there's wood booger out there, and then it'd be terrible because Ryan will never come back. Which way do you lean?
See, the dog was going nuts at something. No, I know it was nighttime. You know, there very well could have been some kind of rodent
A bear.
or something.
Oh, God.
In the bush, or a bear. You know, we had a bear incident, Megan and I. But
it's not paranormal, but still a pretty cool story.
But yeah, everybody,
Pretty
or
scary.
most people have had that situation with a dog. You know, just kind of barking at the corner or barking at the ceiling. You know,
Yeah.
they're seeing something there because I have a lot of respect for the intelligence of dogs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they are a higher thinking animal, I think, than we give them credit for. So I think there's something there. When it comes to cats, I think that they are probably in tune as well. I just don't think cats care enough to let you know.
There's stuff here that
They
can
like
hurt
to
you.
just look off in the distance
Yeah.
anyway.
They're like, there's danger to you, but I'm not going to tell you because I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. So Gaimans George says, yes, absolutely. I had a Chihuahua that go crazy at blank walls at his old house.
Now, that old house has a lot of stories to it. That
Does it?
house you lived in for a while. Yeah. So
Okay.
I think we
need to tackle that sometime then.
Yeah, I think we should probably welcome him on as a guest. And
Yeah.
have him,
So Gaimans
actually
George, if you'd
speak
like
with-
to come on as a guest one night, we'd love to have your stories. Absolutely. Sounds like you've got quite a few, and they correlate perfectly with what we want to do here, is hear stories and share stories and all be scared together. Brandon terrified us tonight, and it was great. I mean, it's scary. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I mean, how do you cope alone? You go to your friends, you find an outlet, you need someone to hear it. Just be like, tell me I'm crazy. And we're going to be like, no, you're not. We've seen stuff like that too. But we'll all deal together. So Gaimans George says he'd be glad to. We would love to have you, man. That'd be awesome. We'll get on that very, very soon. Let's get to his other little story here before we move on to the final cut. When Ryan and I were young, we had twin beds about 2 feet away from each other. One night when I was about 3 or 4, I got out of my bed and went to our parents' bed. Our dad got out of their bed and moved to mine. About an hour later, he gets up and goes to the bathroom. As he leaves the bathroom and heads down the hallway, he passes someone about Ryan's size. Dad figured it was Ryan going to the bathroom, but when he laid down in my bed and looked over, Ryan was in his bed asleep. Ooh. Were you aware of that?
I hadn't heard that.
Oh.
So that was a story from Dad, I guess.
Wow. That's
Interesting.
yes, you were asleep for the whole thing, but it was happening. Somebody was walking down your hallway. How's that make you feel in retrospect?
Makes me feel like I probably had an intense pee, and it left a residual image of that.
You had to go so bad.
Maybe.
Hey, you never know. We've discussed that too, didn't we?
It's getting late at night. I'm kind of grasping here.
Grasping at straws. To answer your question, Julie, yes, we absolutely think animals can sense spirits. I do. I know I always go to this because I'm that guy, but on Ghost Hunters, they took their dog on there a few times, and it seemed to really chase down the things that would correlate with their recorders and EVP meters or EVPs and all their meters and stuff. Yeah, it's hot in here. Ryan's over here like, phew, it's hot in here. It's not spirits. It's just hot. We have to turn the fans off. I wish I could be a little more in depth on the animal one, but that's all I've got on it. Is I absolutely believe.
Maybe we'll visit that one again
Mm-hmm.
After we do some more research on it.
Yeah, that's.
Personally, I believe that there is something to that. Absolutely.
Yeah, there has to be. I mean, come on, you've heard about it so many times, and you see it yourself, and you're like, what's going on? And I don't know. I guess that's the real answer. Well, let us get to the final cut for the night, because we have to go to bed eventually after we wind down from being scared, and we don't want to keep you up forever. A final cut is exactly what it sounds like. It's a last-minute hack and slash at a question that all spooks will answer, and we'd love for you to answer it as well. Okay, so last week we put up the poll, and it's still on the site, so if you want to get in a last-minute vote, Predator or Alien, and we're not just talking Alien versus Predator, we're talking who would you rather have as a best friend and a wingman?
I don't think either of them would make a good wingman.
Who would you rather fight? And I don't remember the third part. Anyway, do the math.
Again, neither.
Yeah, I don't think there's a real winner in this one, but vote-wise, Predator has taken it so far with 88% of the votes.
Let's get some votes in there for the Alien guys.
I think it's because everybody's scared of the alien. More scared of the alien than the Predator. I would be.
My argument, and I think we kind of touched on this before, was the xenomorph can't be reasoned with at all. It was designed to be a killing machine. That's why it exists, is to maim and murder people.
And Gaiman George agrees. Predator, Predator, Predator. No question about it. Predator, even. Predator.
Yeah, he's getting
Predator.
And if you've read any of the Predator comics, or played any of the video games, you know that they can be communicated with and reasoned with. There's actually alliances formed, between human characters and predators to fight against the xenomorphs.
I mean,
so I think when it
completely
comes
relevant
to,
here. It is
when it comes to wanting to be friends with a xenomorph or anything along those lines, it's just not possible. They're going to see you and rip you in half.
I agree.
So that's why I voted Predator anyway.
All right, so tonight we're going to put up a new poll, or maybe tomorrow, probably tonight, if I can drag myself to do it. This week's poll is pretty fun for me anyway, because next week I think we discussed doing a little bit of a horror show.
Yeah,
maybe not full on blood and guts, but in the horror realm some. Of these choices, what is your favorite Universal monster? Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, the Mummy, or the Wolfman? Oh, so Megan, pick one.
I've not seen any of those.
Who is the weakest link? No.
I've not seen any of those classic monster movies.
Don't say that. Don't say that out loud ever.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go with the Wolfman.
Okay, why?
He sounds the coolest.
He's got a really neat beard.
To quote Todd.
All right, Ryan.
To quote Todd, our mummy's real.
There you go. Our mummy's real. So what do you think?
Oh gosh, where's the creature from the Black Lagoon?
Yeah, I was just gonna do 4.
It's kind of like Frankenstein's monster, I think, of this group, or maybe Dracula. They both have so many different stories to them.
They do.
They've been told in so many different ways. I'm gonna have to stew on that one.
Okay, fair enough. Brandon, what would be your choice, sir?
I'll have to second. It probably would have been the creature from the Black Lagoon, but
right. I can agree with that for sure.
Just to have a fear of water, but I'll go with Dracula because there's so much lore behind that character. Can't go wrong.
No, that's interesting. That's a show that's coming up, vampire lore and such. So I'm sure Dracula will absolutely be the biggest part of that show. There's a lot that goes on beyond Vlad the Impaler and such. There's just a lot of lore that's not based on that. That's still just, I don't know. It's like witches. It starts somewhere and then it goes into its own thing.
Yeah. Gaiman George has actually asked a question that's relevant to next week's show, actually, so we'll definitely be shelving this. But he asks, do we think the Universal Studio Monster movie reboots are going to be successful, like Disney's Marvel Universe movies?
Huh.
Yeah, will they find that, because the Universal Monster movies were huge back in the day when they were brand new.
Right.
Will they be able to find that success again? Or are those monsters still relevant these days?
I think, will they be able to capture the magic? It's like with Disney. It's like, if you capture the magic, you can probably pull it off. But
I think
money's not going to make a better movie.
Exactly. I think where Disney's had success with the Marvel franchises, where they've only made really the aesthetic changes, I think, but they've not tampered too much with the source material. I mean, yeah, there are some, and people could definitely argue with me there, but I think for the most part, they've held a lot of respect for the source material.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to kind of make or break the Universal Monster reboot as well. Will they, and that's my fear, is that they'll try to retell or change too many things of the original source material.
Right. Well, if the first one tanks, it probably won't look good for a second one.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm sure there's a lot of youngsters these days, like myself, who haven't seen the classics. So surely, if they wouldn't need to change it much, to capture people who've never seen it in the first place.
Megan is 14 years old.
Pretty close.
I wouldn't change really anything at all. Update the looks of the monsters.
Make
maybe.
it relevant to today, but keep the formula. Yeah. I mean, that's. He says the reason they're doing it is to compete with Disney, and I definitely think that's. Yeah. You've got to do something to compete with Disney. If you want to be anything in this world, just about, you have to compete with Disney. It's just, I mean, even we love Disney. Everybody. I love Mickey Mouse. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's just magical. It really is.
But yeah, we'll definitely have to revisit that for next week's show.
Yeah, we definitely will. Okay. I guess of these choices, I love Egyptian culture. And The Mummy is incredible, but I've always been most intrigued by Frankenstein's monster. It's just a story of, it's not even that much horror. It's kind of, where do I fit in this world? I don't mean to be what I am, but I am what I am. It's a timeless tale that's way bigger than a film, really.
It's a reflection, or let me put it this way. It asks the question, who's really the monster?
Yeah.
In this situation, is it this big beast of sewn together parts, or is it the townsfolk that just don't understand and are attacking this thing because they don't understand?
There's a new version of that film that we watched about 6 months ago, and it's just heartbreaking.
Which one was that?
Was it I, Frankenstein?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, it came out this year, I believe. No, it came out the middle of last year, maybe.
Year? Yeah.
I've got it. I'll try to dig it up for you before you go. It's heartbreaking. It breaks your heart.
Yeah.
It looks at it from the point of view very much as, why is this happening to me? Why am I alive? What's my purpose? I don't have a family. I don't have a mother like I'm created. And he just goes out into the world and realizes that without all these things, you're not considered normal, and it.
God, it's so
One
sad.
could even say that Dr. Frankenstein was the monster for creating him in the first place.
Yeah,
Absolutely. What's the point of creating life if it can't be happy? I guess it's a beautifully horrible story. It's one of the original, I think, kind of gothic love stories that. The Bride of Frankenstein and whatnot. I love those movies. They're so good. There's a set out now with, I think Walmart even sells them. They've kind of re-put out all those Universal Monster movies. So if you haven't seen them, do. If you're over 14, unlike Megan, who is just now 14.
I'm just now old enough to watch them, so
Yeah.
I'll work on that.
She's kicking the Bieber habit and breaking the tween age, and She's going to start seeing real adult movies pretty soon. I don't mean adult movies, grown-up movies. No perverts here. But yeah, I'm going to land on Frankenstein's monster. Gaiman George says he likes the Wolfman.
Yay, Wolfman.
Oh, yeah. The Wolfman's awesome. You can't go wrong with any of them.
I think Teen Wolf is my favorite.
I forgot to notice the Invisible Man. But the Invisible Man was on the list too, and I didn't. Again, I picked 4, and I thought these were the biggest 4. The Creature from the Black Lagoon is one of my favorites, no question. Always kind of been scared of water because of it. Well, I guess that's our show for the night. We're almost at 2 hours. You guys make this more fun than just us sitting here.
Absolutely.
It is way more fun, interactive.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us ramble on.
We really do. We really do love you.
Really appreciate
and for all your input.
We love your hashtags and your interwebs and things. Thank you for being here. We do love you. No joke. We're going to be back next week, and we're going to do some horror movie kind of things, and we'll probably have some more paranormal news and the return of the ghost story, the pre-recorded one that I can go take a break for.
Yeah.
We had Brandon to tell one tonight, so he kind of had an awesome one, way better than my little ones. So thank you, Brandon, for being here, man. You're the best.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
No, it's our pleasure. You've got to be here more, and we'll have Gaming George on, and if you guys want to write in, we'll have you on too.
Absolutely.
We're not picking favorites here. I mean, we love you all equally.
And I also want to remind everyone that the discussion doesn't stop here. Please visit the forum.
That's a big point. It really does. It continues over at the website. We have a forum. You literally go to midnightspookhouse.com and you click community, and you can log in with your Facebook, Twitter, or Google account, so you don't even have to type stuff. And then you just go upload a picture and hang out with us. We'll talk about video games and ghosts and marbles or whatever you're into. Let's do it. It doesn't end here.
Sweet. I'll be there.
Let's happen, man. Let's just let it happen. All right. So we are going to wrap up and say goodnight to everyone. So, Megan, for this evening, would you like to bid adieu?
Adieu.
Simply adieu. There you go. Brandon, again, thank you for having us. If you'd like to say goodnight.
Good night. Thank you, guys.
And Ryan, last but not least.
Thanks again, guys. I hope you'll be back here again next week.
They will. You know they will.
Good night.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't mean that. I hope you will be, though. We really do. We appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Have a great night.
Every time it comes around, I see the same old thing. Friday buzzes past and the vultures start to sing. Baby in the water till it froze. Baby in the water till it froze. Ain't nothing.